Hi, hello, it's me, Tiana, back at it again for another video, and today we are talking about Bad Hair. So Bad Hair is a movie that is written, produced, and directed by Justin Simien. Now, Justin Simien is a black man. Bad Hair is a movie about black women's hair. Now, you're probably like, why would a black man, make a movie about black women's hair? And you will be asking the same question that I was asking myself when I first found out this existed. Why? Who asked you? What made you feel like you were the authority? And you could tell this story with nuance. But I was like, you know what? Whatever. Everything doesn't have to be for me. Every TV show that comes out, every movie that comes out does not have to be catered towards my taste, my preferences, my thoughts and ideas, right? So I saw the trailer when it was first announced. I feel like it was like early in the year. I don't remember. This year has been 40 years. Could not tell you when it was. But I watched this trailer and I was like, this looks really dumb. And I had decided I wasn't going to watch it, right? So the movie actually got onto Hulu this past weekend. And I saw people like live tweeting it and talking about the movie. Now, I'm not a hate watcher. I'm not somebody who will watch stuff because like that I know was gonna make me mad or know that's gonna like annoy me. However, I do like watching bad movies. I do like watching movies that are kind of terrible. There are some shows or movies that you know are bad, but they're fun to watch. So the tweets that I was seeing about the movie made me curious. Because I was like, okay, so maybe it's not gonna be infuriating. Maybe it's gonna be just so bad that it's funny. Because the premise of the movie is basically a haunted weave. So like the jokes, you can take that really anywhere. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch the movie. That was a bad decision. That was a bad decision. The movie is terrible. And the parts of the movie that are like the most annoying to me are not even the like offensive hair stuff, like the anti-black woman stuff that's all up and through the movie, but just the fact that it's just a really bad like a very poorly written movie. Like the plot does not make any sense. It's not scary at all. It's supposed to be a horror movie, but there's nothing scary about it, like at all. Like not even a little bit, like not even a scene, not even a part. Like even at the end of the movie when it's like it turns into a slasher and people are just dying every 5 minutes and it's just still not scary at all. It's just I just was confused as to what was happening. The plot was all over the place and I don't know what the point was. Like I don't know what the moral or the lesson we were supposed to learn from it. Like with most horror movies, people like to act like horror movies are dumb, right? People like to act like horror movies are very surface level or very like blood and gore and that's really it. But most horror movies like really investigate like social mores and they talk about things that we have like deep-seated fears of as a society and they dig deep into social issues. I think her name is Zahara. She has like a great video that she just did about women in horror that I'll link in the description box if I remember because I have a terrible memory. But in that video she talks a lot about the history of horror and how horror has been used like historically to like talk about social issues. And like if you are watching horror movies with an open mind, you can definitely like learn from them and really see how the director or the writer views the world and views like fear and views what people should like what's wrong with society or what they view as what's wrong with society. And in this movie I could not find a moral. I could not figure out what it is Justin Simien wanted us to take from this movie. Like I'll start with the pros. So the pros is Kelly Rowland and Usher. Kelly Rowland and Usher are in this movie and they are great. That's all I got for pros. So I'll just explain to you. The basic plot of the movie is the main character, whose name I can't remember because I watched this movie three days ago, and she was so forgettable and boring. So sorry to the actress. I'm sure she's a great girl, but the main character was very forgettable. She works at this TV station. I'm assuming it's supposed to be like MTV. The station is like, I don't know if it's bought out or they just have a new boss that comes in, and there's still going to be some changes being made, right? She's the assistant to the person who was in charge of everything at the station. That person is fired, so she's kind of trying to figure out what her place is going to be now that they've hired someone else and they're making all these changes, and her direct boss is fired. And she's trying to figure out her space. So her new boss is Vanessa Williams. Vanessa Williams is basically firing anybody who doesn't fit into her narrow idea of who should be working on this television station, right? So in her interview with Vanessa Williams' character, she is told that if she really wants to be taken seriously, that she should change her hair. And then her assistant, the assistant to Vanessa Williams, and she gives her a card and tells her to go get her a weave done at this place. This movie is also set in the 80s, so it's like weaves are a new big thing. Like there's a scene where Kelly Rowland, who's playing like a 80s R&B singer or pop singer, is like, she has a new music video, and in the music video everybody's like crowded around watching and trying to figure out how her hair is doing what it's doing in the video, and they all come to the conclusion that she must have this new thing, which is called a weave, which is hair sold into her hair, right? So she gets the card, the main character gets the card, and she goes to this salon to get a weave. And then basically we see that the weave is like, it's like a story that's being weaved in, a slave story about a slave who was walking and saw a weeping willow tree and took the leaves off the tree and put it on her hair and trying to look beautiful or whatever, and it turns out that the leaves from the tree were not leaves, it was hair from witches, and it like sucked blood and it ended up killing the slave. And then that's what she had on her hair was the slave story was real, and the weave that was like being sewn into her head was actually the hair of witches from the past, and the hair was like sucking blood, and it like thrived off blood. It was like Little Shop of Horrors, where the plant was like, that's all they could survive is by killing people. That's what her weave was doing. Her weave was murdering people who, like, you know, she was assaulted by her landlord, and the weave killed her landlord and drank his blood. Her boyfriend, well, her friends with benefits, I guess, I don't know, the dude that she worked with, that she was sleeping with, was like cheating on her, or taking her for granted, really, because I guess it's not cheating if you're not in a relationship. And the weave kills him when they're having sex and drinks his blood. The weave drinks her period blood. It was a little nuts. It was truly nuts, honestly. And I never really understood what the point was. Like, and then some of the stuff was so blatantly and clearly written by a man that it actually made me mad. Like, it was so blatantly and clearly written by someone who had never gotten a weave, who had never had a sew-in, who had never had any sort of black female hairstyles, like, in life. And it really actually made me so mad. Like, I get that it was set in the 80s, so like, I don't know if I ever talked about it on this channel, but I am a licensed cosmetologist. I fake do hair because I'm not in the salon, and I haven't been in the salon in a while, but I know, like, the practices. I am a black woman who has black hair and has gotten my hair done multiple times, and also I do hair. So I won't sit here and act like I'm an expert on, like, what the weave technology was in the 80s, but I'm sure they were not, like, sewing weave into people's scalp. Like, I know y'all were not full on bleeding out the scalp getting sew-ins in the 80s. Like, for nothing, just for the fact of that was like in the middle of the AIDS crisis. Like, I know they were not drawing blood during hair salon visits in the 80s. I just simply know they weren't. And if you had ever had a sew-in, you would know that sew-ins do not hurt like that. Like, even the braiding style, this is a pet peeve of mine for like TV shows in general and like hair salon stuff in general. I hate when people walk into a salon and then the stylist just starts styling their hair. You cannot style hair without washing it. You cannot style hair without washing it. Like, that is a state board violation, and you will get your license revoked if you are in people's hair without washing it first. That is a health risk. You don't know what's going on inside their scalp. You can get in there and you start braiding and see lice or like any kind of fungus or anything. Like, you cannot be in people's hair without washing it first. Like, you just simply can't. And then for her to come into the salon with an afro and the lady Laverne Cox just comb it and starts braiding it directly from her walking outside to her sitting in the chair, braiding the hair up into a weave without washing her hair, is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I really wanted to vomit. The other wildly inaccurate thing is the movie opens up with a scene of the main character as a child, and her sister is giving her a relaxer, and she burns her scalp. And like, that was the most ridiculous scene of putting in a relaxer I've ever seen in my entire life. None of the steps were correct. Nothing she did was right. That's literally not how you put on a relaxer. The fact that she was getting her relaxer rinsed out and her hair was still in an afro lets me know that whoever was putting her relaxer did not know what they was doing, because you're supposed to smooth the hair. Like, there's no reason why your hair should still be kinky and curly with a relaxer that's ready to be washed out. And to burn a hole in her scalp to the point that the hair in that spot never grew back. She was putting on I'm assuming what was supposed to be the shampoo, the neutralizing shampoo, while the relaxer was still in the girl's hair, as she's saying that it's hurting and it's burning. Like, rinse it out. No. Like, no. Whoever wrote that scene, Justin Simien, has never, not ever done a relaxer, has never had a relaxer, has never seen someone do a relaxer. Like, that. And I'm not understanding what we're supposed to say. Like, the point of this movie is that wearing straight hair is bad? Is that what we're supposed to take in it? Like, because the movie doesn't end with a happy ending. Like, we don't see that she learns that she should be able to wear her hair the way she wants to wear her hair, and not just like what society deems as like proper hair. Because that was a conversation that they had, and I thought that's where they were trying to lead us, that, you know, Black women are more than just their hairstyle, and whether you wear your hair natural or locked or straightened or relaxed, or you wear braids or whatever, that is all like valid and unique and beautiful, and we don't all have to look the same, and we don't all have to try to fit into your Eurocentric beauty standards. But it was literally just, weaves are bad. That was the moral. That was where we were supposed to land at the end of the movie. It's just that weaves are bad. Like, it was so underbaked. It was so like not well thought out. It was not, and then it wasn't even funny. Like, it wasn't even funny. It wasn't even scary. It wasn't entertaining. Like, I was just thoroughly confused as to what we were doing for the most of the movie. I didn't know why they were making the choices they were making. Like, it was just a bad movie on top of being offensive. There's certain stories that we need to let people in that community tell. Like, you could have had an interesting or thought-provoking story about a haunted weave. Like the premise sounds dumb, right? The premise sounds stupid, but you could take that premise and really could have done something interesting or done something fun with it. Like I said, the weave part of the storyline is very similar to Little Shop of Horrors, which is one of my favorite movies. And you could have did something with that, with this weave, with a thirst for blood. Like, you could have done something with that, but it just... And then whatever happened with Kelly Rowland? Like, what happened with Kelly Rowland's character? Like, I was just like they brought Usher in to tell us that, you know, something was going on with Kelly Rowland, because Kelly had the haunted weave too, and he came in and was like, hey, I think something is going on with, I think her name was Shannon or Sharon, or I don't know, something with an S. And he got interrupted by the white man who was we find out at the end was the one who was like selling the weaves that were haunted. But he was interrupted by him, and then they just never went back to that plot line. So like, for all we know, Kelly Rowland is still like running around this universe murdering people with her weave. It's just so dumb. Like, the ending was just blatantly, the main character got her weave wet, which killed it, which was annoying, and she ended up cutting all the weave out, because when she was trying to cut the weave out before, it was just like attacking people. We saw so many people die for no reason. Like, somebody got lynched by their weave in this movie. What was, like, who's this for? Who's this for? Like, and what and the movie just ends with the main character getting her weave out, and that was it. Like, there was no resolution. We find out like how we got to this weave. Like, we find out that it was, you know, a white family on a plantation in the South who has these trees that are like haunted, and that's where the hair for the weaves like comes from. But like, people are still just running around with these weaves. And we also find out that the people, like, the weave like takes over their body, so it's not even, it's like, after you've had the weave for so long, the person who's wearing the weave is not even like a human anymore. They're just taken over by the witches whose hair they have. So like, we have all these like witch body controlled people just wandering around, or like what are we saying? What, like, I just don't understand. I don't understand. Like, it's just, I just wish people would just leave Black women alone. Like, just leave us alone. If you want to make movies about Black hair, make a movie about a haunted fade, okay? Make a movie about the lace fronts that the men's is wearing. Leave Black women out of it, because y'all obviously don't. You could have make a movie about that wig that they had on Jay Farrow. That was a mess. Like, make a movie on that, because that high top was a mess. It was a whole mess, and it was lopsided. Make a movie about that. Like, the hair in this movie was so terrible. And her weave, the main character's weave, that was not no weave from the 80s. I'm sorry, that was 2020 wig technology. Like, that was not no 1989 wig technology. That was an advanced wig. There is no way that they was not doing sew-ins like with the full lace frontal. No ma'am. That was not historically accurate. Everybody else's wigs, though, they was probably historically accurate because they were terrible. But the main character's wig was a little bit too nice, a little bit too advanced, especially for the time period, the fact that she was broke. And one thing I did actually like is the fact that the weave got longer every time it murdered someone. Like, there were bits and pieces that could have made for a really good movie. I thought that was funny, that every time the weave murdered someone, it got longer. But like, overall, the movie was just offensive and weird. Like, I don't get it, and I don't understand what you're trying to say, other than like, women who wear weaves are like possessed. Like, what are you trying to say? Like, women who have, like I said, the movie just ends with us like finding out that the women who wear these weaves for long periods of time are like possessed by witches who the hair comes from, and they sort of lose themselves in the weave, and they're no longer like real human people anymore. Like, why is that the moral? Why is that what you want us to take from this movie, that people who wear weaves are bad people? Like, I just don't get it. I don't get what you, like, I don't know how you could take anything positive away from this movie. I don't know how you can find, because apparently he was saying this was a love letter to black women, but like, what can you positively take from this movie? It's basically saying that what everybody else freaking tries to say about black women is that, you know, if you wear wigs or weaves or extensions of any kind, that you're not black, you're trying to look like white women, or you're trying to fit into your Eurocentric beauty standards. And like, yes, there are some women who absolutely are. There are some women who absolutely are wearing relaxers, wearing weaves, wearing like extensions of all kinds of like different types of extensions, because they do want to fit into your Eurocentric standards. They do want to believe that they'll be able to make it further into life if they fit in and look like what white women look like. There are absolutely women who have that mindset, and it probably was more prevalent in the 80s. Like, again, there are bits and pieces and threads of this movie that has some realism, that has some truth, that could have been a good movie, but like the way that it ended, where you took those threads, where you brought those storylines, never came to a positive place. It was just more shaming of black women for their hair choices, when you could just mind your business, like when you could just worry about yourself. Because because there are women who do make those choices because of Eurocentric beauty standards, there are also women who make those choices because they like the way the hair looks. They want to change their styles. They want to have protective hairstyles, because if you actually have black hair and you've actually had to do black hair, you know that it takes work. It takes a lot of effort to get your hair to do what you want it to do, to lay the way you want it to lay. And some people don't want to do all that work on a daily basis, or on, you know, a weekly basis for their real hair, and they prefer to use wigs and weaves and extensions so they can have the hairstyles that they like, that they see, without having to do that to their own hair on a consistent basis, right? And then you also do have real tangible benefits for fitting into Eurocentric standards. Like, we live in a society which it does benefit you to fit into those standards. There is real colorism that allows lighter skinned women with thinner noses and straighter hair to fit in and exceed in places that women who don't fit into those standards can't get to. And hair is a big part of that. Like, there are absolutely still in 2020 jobs that will not hire you if you do not have certain hair types. Even me, I've been natural for most of my life. I've had most of the time I wear my afro out, like, but I still, when I do job interviews, I straighten my hair, because I know I want for me to get rejected from the job because I sucked, and not because they didn't like my hair. And like, we can go back and forth about whether or not like every job interview or every person that is looking at black women cares whether or not their hair is straight, but there are people who care, and it is a real barrier for entry for a lot of fields for women. There's been so many stories about news anchors who like were scared to wear their natural hair on the air. There've been so many stories about kids getting kicked out of school for having natural hairstyles, or not being able to walk at graduation for having natural hairstyles, or like even boys of having to cut their hair or cut their locks because of like racist, you know, school policies. Like, black hair is political. Black hair has a lot of baggage, and for you to simplify people making a choice about how they wear their hair to people who wear their hair in a natural state are good, and people who wear wigs and weaves are bad or evil, is just dumb. It's short-minded, and it's simplistic and ahistorical. Like, I don't know what was gained by making this movie. Like, and then there were people in this movie who, like Lena Waithe, you thought that this was the right choice? Like, I don't even know how they got Kelly Rowland involved in this nonsense, and I want them to leave my fave out of it. Like, I just don't know what me as a black woman, what I was supposed to take from this, other than the choice, my hair choices are bad. Like, you need to have hair in a certain style, or you're just not as black as the other girls, or you're not as like pro-black, that you only care about Eurocentric beauty standards. And like, even to position Vanessa Williams' character, who is lighter skinned with the straight weave, against the boss that the main character had previous to her, who was dark skinned and also had locks and was starting a pro-black channel. And then you have Vanessa Williams, who's trying to make everybody more mainstream. And then the place where they worked was called Culture, and Vanessa Williams' character changed it. She shortened it to just Cult. Basically, the heavy-handed metaphor is that she was cultivating a cult of women who fell into these beauty standards. And they literally had, when the darkest skinned woman with the natural hair was there, most of the people who worked there had natural hair. And then once Vanessa Williams took over, then everybody had weaves. And it's like, you're trying to imply that women who wear weaves are less black than women who don't. Or like, it has something to do with your cultural identity, your pro-blackness, or your love of black people, whether or not you wear a weave. And it's just stupid. It's dumb. And again, it's not well thought out, and it's ahistorical. It just is. Like, there's so many ways this movie is just offensive that, and then it just had the nerve to be bad at that too. Like, you could have, listen, there are movies that I find offensive. There are movies that I find offensive that I also find funny. There are movies that I find offensive that I get the appeal of, that I feel like is a well-crafted movie that makes like good choices, or make choices that make sense, I should say. Not good choices, but choices that make sense. This movie was not only just terribly done, but it was just blatantly offensive. And I don't understand why. Like, I just don't get why. Like, of all the things that you could have made, like, you were really trying to give Jordan Peele tease, but it just wasn't. It was given Tyler Perry. Like, it wasn't given what you thought it was given. Like, I'm so sorry, it just wasn't. But yeah, so that is it. That is all. Like this video if you like this content. Please subscribe. I'm still trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. We only have a couple months left, so subscribe and send this to somebody else and tell them to subscribe. And tell them to send it to like 5 more people and tell them to subscribe, and we can do it. I believe in us. In the comments, tell me what you were watching this month. Like, did you take any of my suggestions from my other videos? Have you watched any of those specials, any of those shows? Are you watching something else? Is there something you think that I should be watching, something new that came out that I missed, that I didn't see, that you think that I would be into? Let me know in the comments. Guess that's it. That is all, and I'll see you in the next one.